I realize that my heart and my mind are contradicting my own actions. Talagang nagre-resist po ang aking katawan. That is why I am withdrawing from the race. Habang tumatagal at umiinit ang politika, mas lalo akong napapaisip kung ano ang mas makakabuti sa taong bayan. Ayaw rin talaga ng aking pamilya, kaya naisip ko na siguro ay hindi ko pa po panahon sa ngayon. Diyos lang po ang nakakaalam kung kailan talaga ang tamang panahon ko. Ayaw ko rin pong lalong maipit si Pangulong Duterte.
You heard Senator Bong Go announcing that he is backing out of the 2022 presidential race. His withdrawal, once formalized, will leave the ruling party PILIPINO without a standard bearer.
His voluntary exit from the race means the substitution rule will not apply. The big question now is, who will the president back next for the chief executive post? Good evening. I'm Maricel Halili.
I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. While it is not yet official under the COMELEC's eyes, Senator Bong Go has announced his withdrawal from the presidential race in next year's polls.
All eyes are now on who President Duterte will support in 2022. The big story in my report. Senator Bongo's political journey changed drastically in a span of almost 2 months. From being a vice presidential bet, he became a presidential aspirant. But during the commemoration of Andres Bonifacio's 158th birth anniversary, Go announced that he won't be running in the 2022 elections.
I realize that my heart and my mind are contradicting my own actions. Talagang nagre-resist po ang aking katawan, puso at isipan. That is why I am withdrawing from the race.
Go admitted to being surprised after getting picked as President Duterte's successor, but he said other reasons also prompted him to withdraw.
Ayaw rin talaga ng aking pamilya, kaya naisip ko na siguro ay hindi ko pa po panahon sa ngayon. Diyos lang po ang nakakaalam kung kailan talaga ang tamang panahon ko.
The senator said he informed President Duterte of his decision prior to making the announcement. Now that is no longer part of the presidential race, Go said he will back whoever the president endorses.
Handa naman po kami ni Pangulong Duterte na suportahan ang sinuman na tunay na magsiserbisyo, makapagpapatuloy at poprotekta sa Duterte legacy.
The PDP Laban Kusi faction will meet next month to discuss the recent developments. The party said that while they were not consulted with the move, Senator Go remains their top choice as presidential bet.
We will only accept the withdrawal kapag it's really final na na-file na natin sa COMELEC. Kami sa partido ay naniniwala po na he is really the best candidate right now that we have to lead the country.
Meanwhile, the Commission on Elections clarifies that Go must personally process his withdrawal to make it official. Substitutions will also not be allowed since withdrawal is voluntary. For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
Now, who will most likely be the president's new preferred candidate? That big question and more with Professor Dennis Coronacion, the chairman of the Political Science Department of the University of Santo Tomas. Doc Dennis, welcome to The Big Story.
Hi, good evening, Robbie. Good evening to your viewers. And good evening, Mara.
Okay, Dr. Coronacion, of course, everybody is now speculating, assuming this is all formalized tomorrow, no? or soon. Everybody is speculating na, ito na yan, di alam na natin ang game plan ni President Duterte. And people are suggesting, most likely it will ultimately still redound to a Marcos-Duterte tandem backed by President Duterte himself. Are we assuming too much, or are there things that we may not be seeing here?
You know, that kind of assumption is, I think, a bit hard sell if you're going to consider, the president's abrasive manners towards Bongbong Marcos in the past several days. So he has been saying a lot of negative things about presidential candidate Bongbong Marcos. And if we're going to think hardly about this, it seems that he's not the favored presidential candidate of President Duterte. So, it leaves us with the question, who is he going to endorse if he's not in favor of BBM? And at this point, I think it's quite hard to speculate.
Okay, then what does that mean for all the other candidates right now, still in the running? How should they take this? How should they be positioning, if they should be positioning? What can they still actually realistically hope for if PDP Laban ultimately does not field any candidate?
Well, the absence of PDP Laban does not mean that things are going to tilt, in their favor, because even if Senator Bong Go would decide to continue to run, I think that these numbers are going to affect the present configuration. I mean that the Bongbong Marcos Sara Duterte tandem is going to continue to dominate, I think, in the next few months.
Okay, maraming salamat po. That was Professor Dennis Coronacion from the University of Santo Tomas. How does Senator Go's withdrawal plans sit with those still in the running for the presidency? Manila Mayor Isko Moreno says he will not say no to President Duterte should he choose to endorse him, but he says the president's camp should make the first move. Senator Ping Lacson wishes Bong Go luck. As Go's Senate colleague, Lacson said he still supports Senator Go. He noted, however, that Go has been hesitant to run for president from the get-go. Meanwhile, Senator Manny Pacquiao is paying no heed to the possibility of Go pulling out. He says he remains focused on improving the lives of Filipinos. And Vice President Leni Robredo says it is well within Bongo's rights to withdraw from the race. But Robredo says that Go's exit is not relevant to her plans. Robredo reiterates she is now focused on her own campaign.
These are the other big stories tonight. Vaccine makers scramble to come up with new generation jobs to combat a possible surge of the Omicron variant. Moderna says its jabs are likely less potent versus the new variant. The number coding system in NCR takes effect again starting tomorrow. The modified scheme, however, will only affect private vehicles during rush hours. And despite receiving multiple offers and a rift with the Athletics Association, Pinoy vaulter EJ Obiena says he'll stick it out with them or with Team Philippines. This big stories after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Maricel Halili. It's now a race against time as the new COVID-19 variant Omicron forces vaccine makers to modify their shots.
But how long will these companies take to come up with a response against the highly mutated version of the virus? Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez gives us a front seat to this story.
Global vaccine makers are now rushing to study how to tailor their shots to Omicron, even while little is yet known about the new variant. The CEO of Moderna told the Financial Times that the current COVID-19 vaccines will likely be much less effective. The firm earlier said they could have a new formula ready by early next year.
We should know about the ability of the current vaccine to provide protection in the next couple of weeks.
Another U.S. pharmaceutical firm, Pfizer, has also begun studying a new formula, which they say they can get ready in 3 months.
We have made multiple times clear that we will be able to have a vaccine in less than 100 days. In fact, we have already 2 vaccines built in less than 100 days. We built one for Delta and we built one for Beta.
Other vaccine makers like Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca have likewise begun investigating the variant. Infectious disease expert Dr. Ronchin Solante explained that there are at least 2 ways that vaccines can be modified.
Either you make another formulation of a vaccine. The other one is, i-test nila ngayon ang variant, tingnan nila kung gaano kababa ang antibody with the variants of concern. So iti-tweak lang nila.
Pfizer is also developing an oral antiviral drug for COVID called Paxlovid. The firm CEO said he remains very confident the pill will be effective against Omicron.
It was designed with the fact that most mutations are coming in the spike.
The World Health Organization on Monday warned that the Omicron variant poses a very high risk globally. It's now been detected in more than a dozen nations and triggered a fresh round of travel bans in many countries, including the Philippines. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez, We Are One News.
With more than 50 mutations, how exactly is the Omicron variant going to affect vaccine efficacy? Experts say Omicron is much worse than the Delta variant. Delta has 15 to 17 mutations. Omicron has more than 50, 30 of which lie on the surface of the virus. But what does that mean? Experts fear that Omicron might enter the human body more easily. They also fear that current vaccines designed to fight the original Wuhan strain will no longer recognize the new variant due to its increased mutations. The new variant was first reported in South Africa. This is very telling because globally the vaccination rate is slowest in Africa. Only 10% of the continent has been inoculated. Compare that to the likes of North America and Europe, where the rate is at 62 to 64%. This all boils down to what experts have been warning about time and again. Low vaccination rates might lead to a worse mutation of COVID-19. According to them, the virus mutates every 2 weeks. In other words, as long as there's inequitable vaccine supply, there's a big chance that mutations will continue to appear. Here in the Philippines, government hopes to ramp up vaccination through its 3-day national vaccination drive. Tonight's big number, 2.5 million. That's the estimated number of individuals that were inoculated on the first day of the program. The target is 3 million vaccinations per day, but it was twice the output on normal days. More than 2 million jabs were used for the first doses, while the rest were for second doses and booster shots. Another vaccination drive will be held from December 15 to 17.
From one big number to another, but this time it's a very small figure. 425. That's the number of fresh COVID-19 cases reported on Tuesday, the lowest yet since July 2020. The new cases account for 2.1% of the more than 24,000 tests conducted. This, however, is almost 10,000 lower than the tests conducted from the previous days. This is the 7th straight day that caseload is below 1,000. Are face shields going to be mandatory again with the looming threat of the Omicron variant? The IATF is looking at the possibility, but the World Health Organization says that might not be necessary. Camille Samonte with a report.
With the looming threat of the Omicron variant of COVID-19, the IATF has decided to maintain the Alert Level 2 status in NCR. While the country has yet to detect a case of the new variant first reported in South Africa, officials believe it's only a matter of time.
It's not a matter of if, okay? It's a matter of when. It is important that we continue to strengthen and prepare the health system's capacity for the worst case scenario.
Some private hospitals are already gearing up for a possible surge. While cases have been reaching record lows, they are not letting their guards down as they procure oxygen tanks and medicines for COVID patients.
Actually, hindi pa rin natin kasi alam kung ano yung karakteristik nitong bagong variant. Huwag naman sana na mas grabe pa kaysa dating variant. No? Kasi anong time na yun, medyo nagkaubusan tayo ng gamot, nagkaubusan ng mga oxygen supplies. So right now, we are prepared now more.
For health officials, lessons from variant-driven surges should come in handy once Omicron enters the country's borders.
Hindi pwedeng nakalimutan na natin yung early isolation, yung pag-convert ng mga temporary treatment and monitoring facilities natin. Meron pa tayong mga lugar na magpapahiram ng health workers from one place to another. Yung mga telemedicine, no? Nakaset up na ba yun?
But another policy might make its return over fears of the Omicron variant. The IATF is looking into the possibility of requiring the wearing of face shields once again.
Maybe we'll be strict again that kayo ang task force. You have to sort it out whether we have to reimpose the shield.
But the World Health Organization thinks this may not be necessary.
What is important is the physical distancing and the face masking and the hand hygiene. The requirement for face shields probably at this point of time is not mandatory because, as I said, we are still looking at understanding the transmission dynamics of the Omicron variant.
For News 5, Camille Samonte, we are One News.
Umbrella Academy star Elliot Page is feeling himself, and we are here for it. While he seems to be just checking if his new phone works, fans can't help but zero in on those toned abs. The Instagram post garnered over 1 million likes. Page first gave fans a glimpse of his lean physique May this year after a gender-affirming top surgery. He came out as a transgender man in December of 2020. And in some fetch news, Mean Girl star Lindsay Lohan is engaged. The actress announced her engagement to her 2-year boyfriend, Bader Hamas, on Instagram. In a series of cuddle photos with a gorgeous diamond ring to boot, the actress referred to her beau as, quote, "my love, my life, my family, my future." But that's not the only thing we're celebrating for La Lohan. She's set to make an acting comeback via a new Netflix Christmas movie set to air in 2022. For News 5, MJ Marfori, we are One News.
Time for another quick break. When we return, starting tomorrow, some private vehicles will no longer be allowed to ply Metro Manila roads during afternoon rush hours. The number coding scheme takes effect again. Champion vaulter EJ Obiena says he will not change flag, even if he has an ongoing rift with the Athletics Association. And in as much as it speaks of hope, the word vaccine also mirrors division and inequality in these trying times. For that reason, Merriam-Webster has chosen it as its word of the year. Details after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Maricel Halili. Metro Manila motorists, listen up. Better remember your coding days as the number coding scheme returns tomorrow.
For now, it's going to be limited to afternoon rush hours, but if it becomes ineffective in curbing heavy traffic, a whole day coding might be in the offing. Jen Kalimon with this story.
With the easing restrictions comes heavier traffic, such is the case in Metro Manila. On EDSA alone, travel speed at the northbound lane is at its sluggish 9.66 kilometers per hour according to MMDA data. As movement returns to pre-pandemic level, the MMDA will reimpose the number coding scheme on private vehicles starting Wednesday. But it will only be in effect during afternoon rush hours from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. except on holidays. PUVs and vehicles carrying essential and perishable goods are exempted. According to the MMDA, private vehicles comprise more than half of vehicles in Metro Manila compared to just 10% for public transport vehicles.
Ang problema namin is that ang ating public transport is only 70%. And number two, at mahaba pa ang queue, ang pila. At number two, ang sasakyan mo is your own personal bubble. So mapipilita ka mag-angkas na ibang tao.
As for TNVS operators like Grab, the MMDA is mulling the issuance of stickers for proper identification.
They requested Grab to put stickers. Baka pwedeng, meron din kaming counter sticker from the MMDA para dalawa. Kasi kung isa lang, baka mamaya, hindi ko malaman, baka may fake.
Aside from the number coding scheme, light trucks will also be banned on EDSA. These are trucks which have a gross capacity weight of 4,500 kilograms and below. A total track ban will also be imposed on the main thoroughfare. Outside EDSA, however, the moratorium on the track ban stays. The MMDA believes that this move would somehow decongest traffic as Christmas nears.
288 to 300,000. But right now, our volume is 401,000. So, ibig sabihin, may sobra tayong 100,000 in a day. So, that's why kailangan nating magbawas.
The MMDA will assess the scheme for about 3 weeks. If ineffective, Abalo says they might include the morning rush hours as well. If it still won't work, a whole day number coding will be imposed. Reporting for News 5, Jen Kalimon, We Are One News.
And here are the other big stories around the world. The World Health Organization wants a treaty to shield the globe against the next pandemic. Member states have agreed to start the ball rolling on a new pandemic treaty to beef up international response to global health crises. Experts fear it's only a matter of time before the new pandemic appears. Twitter co-founder Jack Dorsey has officially stepped down as CEO of the social media giant. He did not specify why, but he said that he has worked hard to ensure that Twitter can break away from its founding and founders. Dorsey first became CEO in 2007 until he was pushed out the following year. He returned in 2015. Chief Technology Officer Parag Agrawal will take his place. This move comes as Twitter ramps up efforts to keep up with rival Facebook.
For the big story in sports, despite his ongoing row with the Philippine Athletics Track and Field Association, as well as numerous citizenship offers from other countries, pole vaulter E.J. Obiena expressed his desire to remain loyal to the Philippines. Obiena highlighted how much he values loyalty despite supporters encouraging him to make the switch. The world number 5 pole vaulter, however, acknowledged that he may be forced into choices that he doesn't want to make at some point. But at the moment, Obiena's focus remains as it always was, winning gold medals for the country. Meanwhile, in the NBA, reigning MVP Nikola Jokic returned from injury as he led the Denver Nuggets to 120-111 victory over the Miami Heat. Jokic, who had been sidelined with a wrist injury, scored a team-high 24 points and 15 rebounds as Denver ended its 6-game losing skid. This also marked the first game between the teams since Jokic tangled with Heat player Markieff Morris last November 8. Elsewhere, Nikola Vucevic delivered a double-double of 30 points and 14 rebounds, while DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine had 28 and 25 points respectively. to power the Chicago Bulls to a 133-119 victory against the Charlotte Hornets. Flashed on your screen are other games from Tuesday's games.
After Miriam's 2020 Word of the Year, pandemic, this year's word serves as a beacon of hope.
Announced on Monday, the publisher declares its 2021 Word of the Year, vaccine. For one, look-ups for the year increased by 601% from last year. For the dictionary, it represents two stories, the speed by which vaccines were developed.
The dictionary, however, also emphasized how it sparked both hope and ideological conflicts. There's also the debates regarding policy, politics, and political affiliation. Well, for now, let's look at the more hopeful side. Less than 500 today ang new cases, di ba? I mean, of course, it's a Tuesday. We always remind people Tuesday every week is always the lowest because coming out of the weekend. But nonetheless, di ba, we're nearing, hopefully, I mean, those better numbers that we're hoping for.
Yes, I'd like to think that vaccine works.
Oo,
it contributes, di ba? All right, 35 days to go.
25 lang.
Yeah, before Christmas. Tuloy pa rin ang Pasko, mga kapatid. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And on behalf of Gretchen Ho, I'm Marisol Halili. We are One News. Good evening.